How can we draw close to a God that we cannot see? How can we help others learn about the Almighty Creator? We know you will take keen interest in this next talk, entitled Creation Reveals the Living God. Brother David Splain is our guest speaker at this convention. He and his wife Linda are visiting us from the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses in Brooklyn, New York. Please join with me in giving them a hearty welcome as we invite Brother Splain to share with us the exciting subject, Creation Reveals the Living God.
Well, it certainly is a pleasure for us to be back in Canada, our homeland, and I'm very happy too to convey to all of you the warm love and greetings of our 8-member governing body. The governing body loves you very much, and they're anxious for you to know that. Now, as our chairman brought out, the question that we want to consider this afternoon is this: how can we draw close to a God that we cannot see? Well, you know the answer to that. The Scriptures is one way that we can draw close to God. And there is another way as well, and that is creation. At Acts chapter 14 and verse 15, the Apostle Paul describes Jehovah as the living God, who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. Well, that shows that Jehovah is the Creator, that He created all things. But now, what can we learn from creation? The Apostle Paul made a very perceptive comment for his day at Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. And you know what it says, but let's follow along and see if we can think about these words a little bit. Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. Paul writes, "For His invisible qualities are clearly seen from the world's creation onward, because they are perceived by the things made, even His eternal power and Godship, so that they are inexcusable." Now imagine what the Apostle Paul is saying here. He's saying that if someone had been present at the outset of creation, and had just seen the heavens and the earth come together, it would have been inexcusable for him to deny that there is a Creator. And not only should he see that there is a Creator, but he should be able to understand something about God's qualities through the things made. And did you notice that Paul mentioned one of those qualities of God? Yes, it was right there, right in verse 20. We read it. He says, even His eternal power and Godship. Well, power is certainly a quality of Jehovah's. In fact, it's one of His cardinal attributes, isn't it? Now, how does Jehovah use His power? In many ways. But let's just consider one. Let's consider Jehovah's power to protect us. God uses his power to protect us. Now imagine that you are in a shooting gallery. You've seen these. At one end of the shooting gallery, you have a moving belt, maybe with ducks, metal ducks on the belt. And the ducks are moving along. And then at the other end of the shooting gallery, you have a customer with a rifle. And his objective is to pick off as many of those ducks as he can. Now, where do we fit in the illustration? Well, let's put it this way. We are not the fellow with the rifle. We are the ducks. Because the earth and all of the life on the earth is really a moving target for meteorites and for radiation in the universe. So we're really in a cosmic shooting gallery. But Jehovah God protects us in two wonderful ways. He puts up two amazing shields to deflect the harm that the meteorites and radiation could do to us. One is the powerful magnetic field of the earth. And the second is our dynamic, custom-made atmosphere. These two things act as a protection for life on earth. Now let's think about the earth's magnetic field. You know that the center of the earth is really a spinning ball of iron. And that spinning molten ball of iron creates a magnetic field that goes right out into the atmosphere, right out into outer space. And this magnetic field acts as a protective shield for us. It shields us from harmful radiation and from other deadly forces that emanate from the sun. Life is protected through this magnetic field. Now, there's a second line of defense as well, and that is our atmosphere. Now, you know what the atmosphere consists of. It's really a blanket of gases. And the outer layer of our atmosphere is called the stratosphere. And what the stratosphere does, it has a particular form of oxygen that's called ozone. And that ozone will filter out 99% of radiation that could come and harm us, the UV rays. And so this is another wonderful protection that Jehovah God has set up for us. Well, here's the question. Is it all by chance? Is it all by chance that life on earth, this planet, is protected in these two wonderful ways? Is it just a coincidence? Well, Jehovah's creation teaches us something about the person of Jehovah. Now, another of God's attributes, of course, is his wisdom. Now, with all of their advanced technology, humans create tons upon tons of unrecyclable waste. If you've ever visited New York City, you know just how much unrecyclable waste that humans can create. But what about the earth? Jehovah's creation. The earth recycles perfectly, all the time. Let's consider two examples. Water. There are 7 billion people on this planet, and all of us need water. Now, in addition to those 7 billion people, there are countless billions of animals, and all of them need water. And then, of course, the plants need water as well. We couldn't live for more than a few days without water. Now, think about 7 billion people and then billions of animals drinking water. Think about 7 billion people washing, bathing in water, washing clothes in water. And yet, we never seem to run out of water. Why? The wisdom of Jehovah God, the water cycle. How does it work? It's simple. The sun lifts the water into the atmosphere by evaporation, change of temperature up in the atmosphere, there's condensation that takes place, clouds are formed, the clouds get heavy, precipitation falls to the earth in the form of rain, sleet, snow. Then the sun evaporates the water again. The cycle is endless, and we always have an endless supply of purified water. Second example, oxygen. Think about 5,000 people in this hall, all breathing in oxygen and expelling carbon dioxide. Now, think about 7 billion people on the earth, all breathing in oxygen, expelling carbon dioxide, and then all of the animals that are doing the same thing. Why is it that we never become overloaded with carbon dioxide? And why is it that we're not lacking in oxygen? Simple. The oxygen cycle. Humans breathe in oxygen and expel carbon dioxide. Plants take in carbon dioxide and they produce oxygen and carbohydrates. And the cycle repeats itself endlessly. The wisdom of Jehovah God, so that the earth is a perfect recycler. Question: is all this just an accident? Is it all just a coincidence? Now, in Romans 1:20, Paul made reference to the things made. It says they are perceived, God's qualities that is, by the things made. Just think about how many things Jehovah God has made. How many species of life there are. The earth is fairly teeming with life. How many species are there? Nobody really knows. Estimates vary. Some say there are 2 million species of life. Others say no, there are 100 million. Whatever the case, the question for us is it just an accident that we have this splendid variety of life on this planet? Now think about it. Not only is there a tremendous variety in life, but think about the evidence of design that we see in nature. From the shape of the whale's flippers, to the heat-exchanging properties of the seagull, to the sonar of the dolphin, to the gecko's natural Velcro. Human engineers are so excited by design that they see in nature that they study it with a view to improving the quality of our life. Well, they can study it all they want, but Jehovah God holds the patent on all these things. All of these things are evidence of the wisdom of Jehovah God. Now let's go back to Romans 1:20 and read it again. Paul says, "For his invisible qualities are clearly seen from the world's creation onward, because they are perceived by the things made, even his eternal power and Godship." Now notice this last phrase. "So that they are inexcusable." Paul said that in his day, in the first century, with the limited knowledge of botany and biology that men had, that they were already inexcusable. And if that was true in the first century, it is triply true today. Because man knows so much more about design in nature, about the universe, about time and space and all of these other things. So man has never before been as inexcusable as he is today. Well, there are two false teachings that blind many to the truth about God. One is a human philosophy called the theory of evolution. That is a false doctrine. And there's another false teaching that also blind many to the existence of the Creator, and that is the teaching of creationism, which asserts that the universe, the earth, and everything upon it is only a few thousand years old. Now, when we think about evolution, I was very interested in what Paul wrote in verse 18 of Romans chapter 1. Let's go back to Romans 1. And it was very interesting to me to see what Paul wrote in verse 18. He says, "For God's wrath is being revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness," but now notice this, "of men who are suppressing the truth." I thought that is an excellent description of evolutionists. They are men who are suppressing the truth. A brother I know in France sent me a book in the French language just last week. And the title of the book was L'erreur de Darwin, Darwin's Mistake. It's written by a professor, a German professor, and translated into French. But what I found interesting about this publication, it's quite a thick book that describes all of the experiments that have been suppressed by scientists because the conclusions of the experiments did not go along with the theory of evolution. And so basically what they've done, contrary to the scientific theory, the scientific method that is, they have taken evolution as the truth, and then anything that they find that does not corroborate the theory of evolution, they put it aside. They sit on it. They don't consider it. And so they really do fall into the category of these men who are suppressing the truth. Well, what about the creationists? They're certainly not helping the cause for those who want to believe in a creator, because they reject any evidence, scientific or biblical, that doesn't fit into their theory of things. That God made the earth in 6 days, and that the universe has only been in existence for 6,000 years. Well, we're certainly not in favor of evolution. We view that as a human philosophy, and we're certainly not in favor of creationism, because we view that as another human philosophy. Now, we're not afraid of knowledge. The Bible teaches to love knowledge, and we do. But Jehovah wants our faith to be built on proof. He wants our faith to be built on evidence. Faith is the assured expectation of things hoped for, the evident demonstration of the things not beheld. So Jehovah doesn't want us to blindly look into things and believe something that somebody's told us. He wants us to use our power of reason. Evident demonstration of things not beheld. The theory of evolution is not built on evidence. It's not built on proof. It's not built on facts. It's a human philosophy that's designed to suppress the truth about God. Well, for decades, the Awake magazine has helped millions reason on these matters and to see that there is a creator. We just came back from a visit to the branches in Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and another interesting place. And we find that in the Far East, many there don't have a personal concept of a creator. And yet, many of these atheists were fascinated by the cover series that we had in the Awake magazine, Earth Designed for Life, back in February of 2009. They realized that it made sense when they looked at the earth and they looked at the way the earth had been prepared for life, human life. They realized that there was something. And many of them were moved to want to study the Bible. Before that, in September of 2006, we had an outstanding special issue of the Awake magazine that exposed evolution and creationism. And it presented very solid arguments to show that the Catholic Church is wrong in saying that the Bible and the theory of evolution are compatible. We don't believe that. There is nothing in common between the Bible and the theory of evolution. Well, that Awake magazine was very effective. In fact, we initially printed 32 million copies, but we had to reprint it 4 times. And we ended up by printing 50% more of that special Awake magazine than we had intended. 48 million copies in all were prepared. A sister in the United States contacted a biology teacher. She saw the article and she immediately wanted 20 copies, 1 for each of her students. She wanted them to see the other side of the argument. A brother wrote in. He said that he'd been active in the truth since the 40s. He said, I'm nearing 75 years of age, but I have never enjoyed my field service as much as I did this month with this special issue. A sister in Sweden expressed appreciation for the Awake magazine, and she said, I hope that we will get a brochure that discusses this subject. Well, we see the need for such a publication as well. And so it's a real pleasure to be able to introduce to you a new brochure, full color brochure entitled, Was Life Created? Now, the first thing you'll notice about this brochure is how attractive it is. I don't know if you've noticed, but generally in our publications, we don't have color on every page. We'll have 4 pages with color, then 4 pages black and white, then 4 pages with color, and 4 pages black and white. And that has to do with the way our printing presses have been set up till now. But on this brochure, we made a special effort to have color on every page. So you'll find that even if you have young children, the young children will be fascinated by the pictures, and parents are going to be able to help the young children to understand something about Jehovah's creation. Now, the brochure is divided up into sections. The titles of the sections are The Living Planet, Who Designed It First, Evolution, Myths and Facts, Science and the Genesis account, and then Does It Matter What You Believe? Now, this is a brochure that we're going to be able to use in our field ministry. And what it is it's a compilation of some of the articles that we've had in our magazines. At the end, you're going to find a bibliography for those who would like to check the context of some of the sources that are used. So people will be able to go to the public library and look up the book that was used, because we are very, very honest in the use of quotations. And you'll find in this publication that if, for example, an evolutionist makes a statement, but he still believes in evolution, they will tell you so, because we believe in being very honest in our quotations. Now, on page 31, You'll find that you have the opportunity, the reader will have the opportunity to ask for two publications. One, a book for all people, and the other, the Bible Teach Book. So you can see where that is going to lead. If they read this brochure, if they're interested in the truth, they would like to find out more about the Bible, they'll be able to get the Bible Teach Book, and then that's going to lead to a Bible study. Well, our young people are a particular target of the theory of evolution. Scientists, school teachers, nature documentaries, even the movies, all promote the idea that evolution is a fact. And our young people, being targets, moving ducks in this particular type of shooting gallery, they are exposed so much to the theory of evolution that it wouldn't be surprising if some of them don't have a little bit of a doubt as to whether all of these scientists could possibly be wrong. How is it that all of these people who were so well respected are wrong, and my mom and dad, with a 12th grade education, are right? Now, young people today are almost never exposed to the opposite argument in the evolution debate. As we said, very often the scientists will suppress any kind of study that doesn't go along with their thinking. The teachers teach what's in the textbook. They believe in evolution. They believe that it's a fact. Some of them believe that the Bible and evolution are compatible. So our young people really don't get both sides of the story. So how can we help them? Well, one thing we can do is to help them to develop their power of reason. Now, we don't want them to develop a challenging attitude toward their school teachers, but at the same time, as they're listening in class, they need to process the information and not necessarily swallow everything that they are being taught on various subjects. For example, how is it that forms of life, fossilized forms of life, that scientists view as primitive, can be found on the same strata as forms of life that scientists view as modern? If life started from something very simple and then gradually got more and more complicated, how is it that you find the two forms of life existing side by side in the same stratum? They need to think about these things. They need to reason things out. Now, a second way is to provide our young people with material that discusses the very subjects that they are studying in science class, but from a different perspective, from the perspective of proving that Jehovah God is the creator. For example, when scientists announce that they have found a missing link, what are we supposed to say in response? What about the claim that humans evolved from ape-like creatures? Or what about the claim that scientists have proved in their laboratories that life could have evolved by chance? Well, those questions are not covered in this brochure that I just released. So we need another brochure. And we have one. This one is especially for our students, and it's also for those who would like to take a little bit more in-depth look on the subject. And it's called The Origin of Life, 5 Questions Worth Asking. Now, here are the topics that are discussed in this brochure. How did life begin? And here's a good one. Is any form of life really simple? They talk about the simple cell. Wait till you read this. You'll see how simple the cell is. Where did the instructions come from? Has all life descended from a common ancestor? And finally, is it reasonable to believe in the Bible? Now, each of the sections ends with a box that's entitled Facts and Questions, and that'll help the reader to test the logic of what he's being taught. Now, you'll find as you go through this brochure, this second one, that much of it has to do with the cell, because the cell is the basic building block of life. And the whole theory of evolution rests on the assumption, and I say assumption, that the cell could have come into existence by chance. Well, just as a skyscraper without a foundation would collapse, a theory that cannot explain the origin of the cell will crumble. Now just consider a couple of the facts that are discussed in this brochure. Your body is made up of 100 trillion tiny cells. There are 200 different types of cell: hair cells, skin cells, brain cells. The DNA of each of your cells contains the instructions on how to build your entire body. Now, how efficient is the DNA? Just 1 gram of DNA contains as much information as 1 trillion CDs. 1 gram of DNA. Now, here's another fact. And if you've ever wondered about how Jehovah could possibly remember all of the people who have ever lived and resurrect them, think about this. 1 teaspoonful of dried DNA would contain enough information to build all 7 billion people who are alive today and 350 times that number of people. 1 teaspoonful of dried DNA. Well, Jehovah God then will have no trouble remembering those who have passed away in death. Well, you're going to find that our young people will have a good use for this brochure when science class discusses some of these subjects. Some of the arguments that you may have been fond of 40 or 50 years ago, arguments that were contained in Evolution versus the New World or other earlier publications. The scientists have tried to argue, they've tried to find answers for some of these arguments, and so we constantly have to be updating our information just as they try to update their excuses, their arguments. Well, tomorrow morning, during the program of the morning, you're going to see some demonstrations that will show you how you can use these 2 new brochures effectively. One for the field, and then another for our students and for those who want a more in-depth look at the subject. The Bible says that before we can believe in God, we have to believe that He is, and that He will become the rewarder of those earnestly seeking Him. And so it's very important that our faith in the existence of God be solidly based. And we're convinced that these 2 brochures, Was Life Created and The Origin of Life, will help many humble people to gain profound reverence for the living God.
Thank you very much, Brother Splain. No doubt all 5,075 in attendance this afternoon were delighted to learn about the 2 new brochures entitled Was Life Created? And The Origin of Life, 5 Questions Worth Asking. We look forward to reading these brochures with a view to helping humble ones gain profound reverence for the living God. You'll be happy to know that arrangements have been made for each one present to receive 2 copies of each brochure right after the concluding prayer. We might also mention those that are riding on the buses. You'll be able to get your publications on the bus, so you'll be able to immediately go to your bus from here. In addition, both of these brochures will be available in Grade 2 English and Grade 1 Spanish Braille beginning September 1st, 2010.